It's the Chickenfoot podcast. And I don't know why I'm doing this southern accent. I always default southern accent. My
Does this
name.
help? The lighting? I have a funny story to tell. I'm trying to get better lighting, I guess.
Try to point it. Can you point it at your wall in front of you? That kind of helps. Yeah. All right. So, this is Chickenfoot Podcast. My name is Judah Buddha. I'm here with Arthur Spooner. We are here to take a closer look at comedy, jokes, and what makes us laugh. Now that may interest you, that may not, but hopefully it's entertaining enough that you'll stick around. Joseph, today's the day, man. I'm gonna try some. It's like stand up. It's like a joke. It's like stand up on you.
Okay.
It's so rough. It's like rough draft of a rough draft. You know how it's like it's kind of funny in your head, and when you say it, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happens to me all the time. Unfortunately, story of my life.
That would be a good thing to explore, but. Because I do that's a cool thing. Like, let's talk about times we thought that we were funny, but nobody else did. But we also want to talk a little bit about Seinfeld. You're able to see, we both watched that. We watched season 9, episode 9. To me, there was like some of my favorites. I couldn't like really put my finger on it. I just watched that one and thought, this has everything I like about Seinfeld in it.
Okay.
And
well, I guess anyone listening will just summarize like the different plot points.
Yeah.
So,
we'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll get to that first.
Okay.
So we always start with a joke. Either we got to make one up, or find one that neither of us has heard before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was thinking of this joke. Okay. So it's like this is gonna be terrible. Okay. So things have changed a lot since I was a kid. The main thing for me, and specifically when we're talking about using the bathroom, is that you probably know just as well as, nobody uses the bathroom without a cell phone anymore, right? It's like you forget the cell phone and you're up shit creek in more ways than one. But I was thinking about this the other day because there's like a string of days that I went where I plugged in my cell phone, had to use the bathroom, and you get there and all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this is the most boring. How did this become so boring? And so what was really interesting to me is how interested I got in things like you'd never notice when you're sitting on the pot. The things I started to notice and sort of relate to. So the first time it started, I sat down, nothing to do. I just started looking around and noticed how dirty my bathroom was. Now it's been a long time since I've lived on my own. And when I lived on my own, bathrooms are pretty dirty. But now that I have 4 kids, it's like living. I'm astounded at how dirty the bathroom is compared to like when it was just me and Chandon. All right, so I'm sitting on the toilet and I'm looking around and I'm thinking this place is really dirty, and I notice a corner that just is like it's like full of filth. And
sorry,
what was that?
That was my phone. I forgot to turn it on silent. Sorry.
Totally wrecked my awesome joke.
Yeah, the build-up was like, I was on the edge of my...
I'm working on it. So I notice a pile of hair in the corner, and I think to myself, okay, as soon as I'm done here, get the business done, I got to clean that up because this is awful. How did I never notice it before? And the reason I haven't ever noticed it before is I'm just looking at a screen. But I forgot to do it, of course. Second time rolls around, forgot my phone again. There's that pile of hair in the corner. And so this time I just start staring at it just so I can remember. Like I just stare at it the whole time. We got to remember. As soon as I'm done here, get a broom, sweep it up. And I forget again. Third time comes around again. I started this routine where I start plugging in my phone. When I come home, and I don't have my phone again. And this time I'm looking at that pile of hair. And after staring at it and having this relationship with it, I don't even want to clean it anymore. I've developed a relationship with it. And I decide not to clean up the hair. Fourth day, I go in there. This time I have my phone. I look over there at my friend, a pile of hair in the corner, and it's gone. I got nothing. There's something. Save me. Okay. How can we save this joke?
Well, I was waiting for the punchline. Were you just going and hoping for something?
Yeah.
All right. So this is what I would do to rework it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you start with the phone.
Okay.
Man, everything revolves around your phone. You're doing everything.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize how much I need my phone until one day I was taking a dump and I was charging my phone. I didn't have my phone. Right? Yeah. And instead of you're in and out all the time, but instead the whole time you're in there, you're bored and you're like, you make friends with the pile of hair in the corner. And you start doing like internet stuff that you do with your phone. You start doing with the stuff around you.
That's good.
You're like, you're scrolling up the toilet paper.
Yes.
You're scrolling up the toilet paper.
Yes.
You give a thumbs up to the hair. So stuff like that maybe.
Yeah. And then what could be a good punchline? So like, what is the worst thing that can happen to you on social media? Like if you're sitting there on your phone, like what's the worst thing that can happen to you?
Oh, somebody comes in and walks in on you. Somebody comes in and that's like your pick being spread out on the internet. It's worse than that because you're vulnerable. And now that pick is in their head forever. Because, when you wipe, do you lean forward or do you kind of stand up?
Well, here's the other thing. I don't know if this we could weave this into it, but we use a bidet. Like Chanda got me hooked to a bidet. So this is kind of funny. This is kind of a funny story. Chanda, she's always wanted to have a bidet ever since she went to the Middle East. When she went to the East, Asia, and they all have bidets over there. She just loves the idea of a bidet. I hated it because when we first got it, it's like this wet mess. I'm like, how is this better? But I started the more and more I used it, it's you start to kind of work on it and use it to your advantage. All of a sudden, I get it in the right spot, and I'm like, man, it's not so bad. Cold, gushy water.
Yeah.
And now I can't go anywhere if they don't have a bidet. It was the worst part about visiting my family was they don't have a bidet. I hated using the bathroom.
Well, this is what I would say is you make a list of things that you would do in the bathroom that could be internet related.
Okay.
Maybe some wordplay, some stuff in the wordplay. Even the bidet, you're bored in there, you're trying to fart with the bidet, trying to get you're just bored. You're trying to entertain yourself. And then he's like, the most embarrassing thing that can happen to you on the internet is your dick pic, and say you're standing to wipe and somebody comes right in the door and sees you all exposed. Now they got your dick pic in their drive and it doesn't translate as well. So there's no accurate photo representation. Their memory is going to distort it. So I'm already not working with the biggest tools in the shed. So now it's already to my detriment. So that's what I would do.
Well, have you? That's a good question. Have you ever been? Has anybody ever walked in on you, or have you ever walked in on anybody?
Oh, I've walked in on people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It is the worst.
It's like you can't find a more compromising situation for a person. It's
yeah.
Even you walk in on the most attractive person in the world, and they're sitting.
They're so vulnerable.
It's the worst.
I remember when I was in the Navy, on a ship, they would have. Do you mind me to tell a story?
No, go ahead. We're done with the thing. We're done.
All right. So I kind of have two stories to this. It reminded me of one story was, let me explain how the heads or the bathrooms work on ships.
Okay.
So the ship tries to utilize the space as much as they can. So they'll have a row of shitters, right? And then a row of sinks and then a row of showers. So it's all like in one compartment, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine, McKinney, he goes walking into the bathroom and somebody had the door wide open, legs spread open, like really high. And the guy was sick and he's like, and McKinney's like, damn it, man. Like, close the door. And the guy's like, I'm sick. He's like, yeah, close the door. I can see everything. He's like, come on, man. And so the thing about that is that you would be in there brushing your teeth or you're taking a shower and somebody's taking a huge and the whole place stinks and you're like taking a shower and you're like almost done and you feel so dirty and nasty, like you're like I was like, man, I gotta start over. It's like you gotta rewash. Oh man. So you're brushing my teeth and someone's like shitting and you're like, oh god. Oh my god. And people will sometimes purposely not flush so that you would see like a huge chocolate fudge dragon just like sitting in there. Man, it was like so gross. So that's how I would do your joke.
All right, that's good.
I would revolve around the phone because then you could do phone jokes, and then you're in the bathroom without a phone.
Yeah.
So then you start doing stuff that you would kind of do on the phone. You're trying to do it in the bathroom, like scrolling the paper.
So you got to really connect at the beginning with the common language. So looking at our quadrilateral, there needed to be more of the language, like the more of the connections there with, like you said, the toilet paper and the feed.
So you're connecting the culture of our internet phone use with bathroom culture. Yeah. With the tradition that you do or routine you're doing with your bathroom. So you're doing that. And you also got to have like the timing. So I felt like you were like right on the edge of having a punchline, but then you start telling a little bit longer story. Yeah. And then you're right at the point where a punchline would be in, and then because I didn't have a punchline. Yeah, well, I thought that you're building for one, but so that's what I would do. And so those two cultures, you mix them together. You know what I mean? Like I said, like you're swiping and you're swiping the toilet paper,
thumbs up,
you're looking around the room around all the products and you realize, oh man, I gotta get more shampoo. Like the ads on Facebook. Always have ads on Facebook. And you're like, oh yeah, I gotta get shampoo. Oh yeah. And then and then an article, a magazine article, you're like, I've read that one already.
That's good.
Fake news. You can do stuff like that. And, like an old article about, like, I don't know. Yeah. Lance Armstrong winning the Tour de France. And you're like, fake news.
It's fake news.
Well, fake news because he was steroids. Yeah. Remember? Because he cheated. So they took it away from him. So it's like, he didn't win anything anymore. Like have an article of something, OJ didn't do it or something. You know what I mean? Where it's fake news, where it really is news that's fake, time has changed, whatever. So that's how I would do with that one.
Okay.
So you have, and then the final one is the big embarrassing thing that people do on the internet where they send nudes, and somebody walks in on you, and then your nude is permanently etched in their brain, and they can't, and you're like, oh, my grandma's got my nudes. You know what I mean? Like, imagine sending, sure, you're trying to impress this woman, but my grandmother's got a dick pic of me forever. Like, now it's awkward. I'm like, that's the motor. Like, I don't know. But I think that would be a good finisher. Building up to, but that's my sense of humor. I don't know if that would translate well with you. Mm-hmm. Like and like on Facebook and Twitter, you're dealing with all kinds of crap, and then like your crap, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's like never ending. You're wiping. It's like the comment section on YouTube. You're like, this is crap. Unsubscribe. So I could see you could do some stuff with that.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
That's
good. I'll work on it and bring it back.
Mm-hmm. Which now I have a funny story at the end.
Oh, good. All right, hold that thought.
All
right. Okay. Well, so I get -2 points for that one.
Yeah, that one didn't have a punchline. I was like, oh, okay, here it goes.
Okay, here it
goes. All right. Nope.
No. It's mainly like I think. Well, I'm not even close to. I can't even conceptualize the idea of writing a joke. So, like, if anything, like, I think it's useful for me to workshop, like, just what we went through. That little workshop helped me tremendously, like, in my writing process.
Yeah.
If I do have a writing process.
Well, if we apply the quadrilateral that we have, which is one is culture, surprise, increasing tension, and decreasing tension.
Mm-hmm. Well,
right?
Or say sudden
increasing shift. Emotions or calming emotions, So what I would say is, so the culture of the bathroom and the culture of how we use the phone, you're meshing those two together. You're using terms interchangeably to apply to different things. The elevation, I would say, is that you don't have your phone. So you're bored. You don't know what to do, right? Mm-hmm. And then the decreasing of that tension is now you're doing the internet stuff with the stuff around you. You know what I mean? Like you're scrolling through the toilet paper, and stuff. You do stuff like that, and then the surprise is, a really embarrassing thing that happens to people online happens to you in the bathroom, but at least online, the next person is going to do something embarrassing. People move on. Now this is a permanent image your neighbor has of you. Like this is the cookout you're having, and this is not the first impression you wanted to give. So you know what I mean? You can have that kind of surprise. Yeah. Which I started thinking in the shower the other day.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the shower
fits it right in.
Has no bearing on what I was about to say. I don't know why I brought up shower.
Well, because that's going to come up when we talk about the next thing.
Well, I was wondering. Yeah, that's true. I was wondering if certain things that we find humorous, if it's a certain combination of the quadrilateral. It might leave like sarcasm. Mm-hmm. Where you're increasing the threat, like the tension, because you're kind of attacking the person, but you're not having the release of the emotion, right? The sarcasm is keeping that tension there. And that's the humor, is that you're trying to bring awareness to the tension. You know what I mean? And you're not decreasing it. So you have the surprise of what you're saying with the common culture of what you guys are doing. Like you're being sarcastic about something because you're not directly saying something, you're implying something with sarcasm. So there's a common culture there, and then you're increasing the tension, but you're not decreasing it. So you got three aspects of the quadrilateral which I started thinking, I wonder if it's certain combinations of the quadrilateral, not having the whole thing there.
Not having all four, but having like certain combinations.
Types of humor. Yeah. You know what I mean? So not all aspects of the quadrilateral are definitely present, but what we're saying is the extent of humor falls within those things, but it's not limited to having to touch all those things. Right.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I started thinking like, if we were just to pick a certain aspect of humor, like sarcasm, if we started to look into it, maybe we can start teasing out what aspects of the quadrilateral keeps coming up with certain types of humor, you know? And if you're good at building tension, or if you're good at relieving tension, you know, and finding commonalities, then that type of humor is going to match up. Yeah. Where your commonalities in culture and relieving tension, you know. I'm not sure what kind of humor that is, but maybe we'll stumble across it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we had a list of all kinds of humor words,
well, that's
and we kind of go through them and start saying, you know, what would touch this?
That's what I want to develop. If by the end of this season in the Chickenfoot podcast, I'm able to write a joke, you know, like one, I have to get it out there. Like I have great jokes until I say them, you know, and so getting them out there, and I think this is a great place to do it. It's a safe place, you know, this is what we're here for. So like that was incredibly embarrassing for me to start, you know, shaping out that idea, but your constructive input like has helped me like understand how for next time how to write it better, you know. What?
Your zipper's down. That's like leaving your phone unlocked. So you're walking around with your phone unlocked, and then you realize somebody's looking at your phone. There's all the kinds of stuff you don't want them to see, right? That's a good. So I think you have to work on the bathroom thing.
All right.
Like if you just ditch it and you go on to something else, you're never really going to work on the craft.
No, I
gotta keep refining it. So I already gave you a common culture where you can work on the overlapping cultures of the bathroom issues with internet phone issues, social media issues, and they can
somehow how to work them together. Okay. Thank you.
I think the fly down is maybe better than somebody walking in on you, right? Yeah. Because the fly down is,
I don't know.
You're not just
walking in on me though.
Well, see, the walking in is they're invading your personal space. But the fly down is you're taking your personal junk and you're just walking around. Everybody in the world can see your stuff, and you don't realize that you're living out in the open. Like, hey, I'm selling pickles over here. You know what I mean? So it's like the reverse, where if somebody comes in, and you can maybe even use that too, as saying, I'd much rather have somebody come in on me. Because at least it's just tied to that one person, as opposed to I'm walking around my family's barbecue selling pickles, you know, and everybody's seeing my junk, you know, and it's like your phone unlocked, you know.
I have to think about that. Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff you can work with. I think it's just a matter of getting to a punchline, getting in the rhythm of telling something, building up punchline. And then if you have a good line, you can have like these little add-on lines afterward.
Yeah, I think that's good.
You know, like I was saying, walking around with my fly out, I'm like, hey, everybody. And, you know, some people start laughing. Then it's like, hey, I'm selling pickles over here. You know what I mean? Like walking like this. And so the main joke is the fly down. But then the selling the pickles adds on to the laugh that somebody else would be laughing. Yeah. If you see what I'm saying.
It still needs some kind of a punchline to build up to, you know, something that flips everything. I have to think about it. I like that. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, I think once you can make the good comparison, word it really well between the culture of the phone and the culture of the bathroom, then I think that could be a punchline right there. And then everything else is just kind of you're pulling from that well. You're trying to drain that well as much as possible, because the well is that concept of those two worlds colliding.
But see, here's the reason I like somebody walking in on me, because it's like the idea of privacy. You know how like how social media is pretty much devastated any kind of privacy people have anymore. You know.
Well, there you go. What you can do is, for you, somebody walking into you, you make a joke that is privacy. Yeah. But nowadays, everybody lives with privacy out in the open. It's like walking around with your fly down. You're like, that's all right.
Yeah.
Toilet paper on my shoe. I don't care. What up? This is what I've been doing. You know what I mean? Like you're contrasting the two. So you can have both. But what I'm saying is the culture of the internet or social media,
that'll be the thing that hooks
in the bathroom. That's the overarching framework, and then you have all these jokes within that.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's the well, and you just keep pulling from it, and then you could transition into whatever afterward. But I think that would be the framework. Of those bits, several bits in a row, several punchlines in a row.
Okay, well that's I got my work cut out for me. Next week you got to come up with one.
A joke?
Yeah.
All right.
Can you do it?
So I had to charge my phone, and then I went in the bathroom, and I'm like, and then I saw some hair, and I was like, getting hairy in here. Harry and the Hendersons over here.
That's already funny.
I'm with Harry.
That's already funny in what I got. Hold on, man. What I got. Okay, so the segue over to here's the thing. One thing that brings us together when it comes to comedy is shows we watch. Now, I think I picked Seinfeld because I've been watching a lot lately, but really Seinfeld isn't one that we've watched together. The ones that we really should start looking at are
The Office.
I guess The Office for sure, but I was thinking of what is that one you introduced me to? It has Putty in it, and it has. We should do King of Queens for sure, but the other one, what is it? I always forget the name of it. With David Spade is sort of the two couples, and then David Spade.
Rules of Engagement.
Rules of Engagement. I think it's one of the funniest yet least people have the least exposure to it. I think it's funnier than King of Queens. I think it's funnier now. Later on in the season, it takes a dive, but I think that would be a good one to discuss. But today we decided to talk a little bit about it. Just one episode. I think it's good to give a shout out to Seinfeld, as it is the most. I think other than Friends, it is the granddaddy of comedy shows. The one that for at least a generation, our generation, people have looked at it as the funniest sitcom ever created, or at least the go-to. You haven't had much exposure to Seinfeld, though, right?
I've watched episodes. Yeah, I never got into it because I was never like a TV watcher. Yeah, I watched movies, but I never really was a TV watcher. And I just happened to catch an episode of King of Queens, and I thought it was hilarious. And so I would buy the DVDs as they came out. So I watched all of them through DVDs.
Yeah.
And so I never really watched Seinfeld on TV. But once I saw a few episodes, I thought it was funny. Every once in a while, I'd be like a Walmart or something, and I'd see a season, and I would buy it, and then I'd watch it. So I have like a couple seasons on DVD.
Okay.
But I've never watched through the whole series.
I think a considerable difference between King of Queens and Seinfeld is that seems like there's more of a running thread through King of Queens, whereas Seinfeld is much more serial sitcom. Pretty much for the most part. Now there are things that run through the whole season, each season more and more as the seasons go along, but for the most part, each episode is a standalone episode.
Okay.
Serial episode. So that could be why I mean, it's easier to just kind of one off a Seinfeld episode.
Mm-hmm.
I picked season 9, episode 9, The Apology. This one I thought is just particularly funny because each quadrant of the show, so Jerry's relationship, George's relationship, Kramer's relationship, and Elaine's relationships, there's something very funny and sort of clever about each one, and they pack it all into one episode, so I thought it was pretty ingenious. So for Seinfeld, it starts off and his girlfriend is walking around naked in completely mundane situations, and it's a real problem for him, especially when she's doing things that take muscular. She's opening cans of
pickles and
stuff, and it's grossing him out.
She's cleaning, she's working on his bike.
That's right.
He's like, I don't want to ride that thing. It's just there for decorations. George can't believe it. He's like, I would love, to have a girlfriend like that. But he's got his own problem. His friend it's actually James Spader from, I don't know, you probably, others know him from Stargate, the movie. What was that comedy he was in? A sitcom? Mannequin. Well, there's a comedy movie, Mannequin.
But he was in
with Kim Cattrall.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was in the second Avengers. He was Ultron.
Oh, that's right. He was Ultron. But I think he's most known to my generation as, I forget what his name was. He was part of Boston Legal.
Okay.
He was in Boston Legal with Kirk, Captain Kirk. What's his real name?
Shatner.
Shatner. Yeah, William Shatner. Yeah, him and William Shatner played these, like, I don't know, likable yet scuzzy legal guys. Anyways, lawyers. But his thing is young James Spader. He's going through the 12 steps, and step 9, I think it is to go and get restitution. So apologize to
all the people you've wronged.
Yeah, and George, the scumbag, of course, he's sitting there, finally gonna get my dues for that time he made fun of me at the party for not lending me. It was like he wouldn't lend him a sweater because he was afraid he said George had a big head. But spoiler alert, this guy Stanky Hanky is not he's not coming around to apologize. Frustrating George.
And George wants an apology because one time they were at a party, he asked to borrow a sweater, a cashmere sweater, and he's like, I don't want your big head stretching out the neck. And then everybody laughed, and George was embarrassed, and that's what he wants, an apology. He wants an apology for that.
And so he gets as George usually does, he gets uber, he just gets obsessive compulsive.
He gets angrier
involved
and angrier.
And so he gets involved with the guy's sponsor. He goes to a meeting. He starts calling him out. But all right, so, and then to me, the funniest, the reason I like this one the most is Kramer. Kramer comes out of the shower. He takes a half an hour longer shower, and Seinfeld is just like incensed that anybody would take that long of a shower. He's like, how long do you take? And he's like, he's going around asking people, they're like 10 minutes at most.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to figure out how to be more efficient with his showers. He's going into locker rooms and watching people shower. He's asking Jerry to like show him.
Yeah.
And
he gets a garbage disposal put into a shower.
That's the crescendo, is that he gets he asks. Okay, so but then it kind of coincides with Elaine, because Elaine's dating this guy who's a germaphobe, and she's trying to get him to not be a germaphobe, I guess is how you put it, and she's using the help of putty. So one of our favorite comedians, or at least he's one of my favorite comedians, Patrick Warburton, I think that's his name, Patrick Warburton. He plays in such just anything he's in, to me he's funny. And he's in that one we were just talking about. What is it?
Rules of Engagement.
I always forget the name.
He was in Tick. He was Tick.
He was the original Tick, in the original live action. He's also a couple of voices you might know from cartoons. Anyways, he's a funny guy.
Family Guy. He's the guy in the wheelchair in Family Guy.
That's right.
Well, there's one big thing that we were just talking about that keeps coming up, but I'm going to let you finish.
Anyway, so the huge crescendo is that Elaine gets her boyfriend to stop being a germaphobe. Meanwhile, Kramer has figured out he's gone the other way. Instead of trying to do shorter showers, he just wants to spend all his time in the shower. So he gets Putty to help him walk him through installing a garbage disposal in his shower, and he makes a salad. And the crescendo at the end is everybody's eating salad. All these, so it's Elaine, her boyfriend Putty, and Kramer, who's made the salad for it. Now, these are all ex-germaphobes. But he reveals that he made the salad in the shower, and Putty just like knocks everything down, says, germs.
Well, one of the things that I noticed, if we were to apply the quadrilateral, one of the things that just stands out with when I apply that to Seinfeld is the cross-cultural stuff. Everything is, they're taking the culture of Jerry's story and then they're mixing it with Kramer, because Jerry is talking about being naked too long. And then they're talking about, he's like, the longest I'm naked in the shower is like 10 minutes. And Kramer's like, what, an hour? He's in there an hour. So Kramer's like, he's trying to minimize his naked time. And then he just decides, screw that. I'm going to spend more time in there. But if he's going to spend more time in there, he's got to do all kinds of other stuff. Like he's cooking and all that kind of stuff. And then Elaine introduces where she has a coworker where it's just her and this coworker sharing the female bathroom. And now the female is like germaphobe of everything she's doing. Right? And so she's telling her boyfriend about it. And her boyfriend's like, yeah, I'm a huge germaphobe and stuff like that. And then so they're talking and they're trying to overcome their germaphobness. But then in the end, Kramer, he cooked a meal in the shower while he was naked, and they ate it. So they're crossing their stories.
Crossover,
And then the Elaine brings up the friend who's in the 12 step, right? And so George, he wants an apology, right? So he's going to him, and he wants an apology. Everybody's still laughing about the joke, the sweater neck thing. So he goes to his sponsor, and his sponsor says, well, we have a meeting, I'll take you there. So he takes him to anger management meeting, right? And so at the end, you see when the credits are rolling, you see the three, Elaine, her boyfriend, and the coworker at a germaphobe meeting where George is trying to go to the anger management meeting.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So all their stories keep overlapping. So they're cross-culturalizing all the stories together.
Yes.
And so when they have a funny narrative, they like say, well, how can this translate into Kramer for a joke, and then that kind of, you know, domino effect into this story and that story.
Yeah.
So just like we're talking about with your joke in the bathroom, where they overlap, but they're cross culturalizing, and then you're transitioning from the bathroom to you like your privacy, but then everybody nowadays, they like their privacy out. So what's an embarrassing thing that happens after the bathroom that your privacy is out is the flies down, right? Yeah. So you're like going from one culture to the next culture to back to privacy culture, and then, you know what I mean? So that's the one thing that Seinfeld likes to do is they take different cultures, they mash the concepts together, and then they play with the ideas. Is how is being naked less or more can be funny.
Well, and I think that is a special thing that Seinfeld does. I haven't seen many shows do it like this, and that is, we talked about, I think we touched on the idea of like comedy and intelligence, right? And I think what it comes down to is complexities. How do you make the complex relatable?
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times the best jokes, the funniest stuff are super complex, but yet they remain relatable. And like you're saying, they keep it in the language of culture, something that you and I can connect with.
Because we could connect with the not walking around too long naked. You know what I mean? You can kind of certain situations, because they're talking about him and George are talking about naked too much and good naked, bad naked, right? Yeah. And so we all have like a kind of a culture of what's good naked and bad naked. Yeah. And then how much time is you should be naked. And then shower time, where Kramer's on the way over the other side, like who takes a shower for an hour, right? And then at the same time, germaphobe. Like, how much of a germaphobe are you really?
Everybody is a germaphobe to a certain extent.
Yeah, so he
keeps
takes
us healthy. Yeah,
and that's the thing about Kramer is he's the extreme on one side, and then you got George, who's the extreme on the other side. So one is too loose, the other one's wound too tight. Yeah, you know what I mean? So you got somebody who's too loose with the culture and is willing to go way too far with certain cultural norms, where George, he is too restrictive with cultural norms. Well, there's a limit where average people will say, yeah, I'll do this, but George is like, no way.
Yeah, he's got these like, yes, he's really uptight. Yeah, that is a quintessential characteristic of Georgeness.
Unless his ego is threatened, and then he's trying to justify it.
Right.
Like I remember an episode where he's peeing in the shower, in the gym shower, and somebody caught him peeing in the shower, and they're like, oh no. And every time you tell it, everybody's like, no. He's like, what do you mean? No, it's pipes. They're all pipes. They're all pipes. You know?
Yeah. What my dad brought up I grew up watching this when I was in high school, and my dad brought up one time, my dad was a philosopher, and one of the things that he said he noticed and he thought that worked really well, the reason Seinfeld worked really well, is that everybody sort of working on this project are mostly Jews. And a lot of the comedy comes out of it comes out of like the uncomfortability of, kind of like you're saying, like uptightness, like rules about things and cleanliness and non-cleanliness and what is good and what isn't. And he was saying how like he thought it was important, even though probably none of these guys are religious. He pointed out to me that like a lot of good comedy can come out of having standards. If nobody has any standards, if everything's just whatever, and you don't have any kind of like, this is good and this is bad, then it's really hard to be funny, because everything is like, there's no taboo, and taboo can make things really funny. And so I thought that was interesting back when I was a kid, and I think I find myself thinking about it again now, especially knowing that Larry David was very instrumental in all this writing. He's a very secular Jewish guy, but there's this, it comes back to this, like, there is this sense of like, there are certain things that going back to the cultural aspect in the quadrilateral, there are certain things I think taboo needs to be fit in there. There are certain taboos that we get up to the line, but we don't go over. There's good naked, there's bad naked, there's categories, there's categories, and playing with those categories can create a lot of hilarity.
Yeah, there's like a lot of social norms that we follow. Yeah.
And that are good. And I think if we don't follow those social norms, we lose, like, one of the things we lose is the ability to sort of, it goes to the quadrilateral release, there's no release. If everything's just released, then nothing's, there's no relief from anything, And it's good to sort of, I don't know, it's good to have certain rules that we can break every now and then to get a sense of release. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think part of what it is good because you build the tension, but you're taking out the threat level because really, I mean, we're not talking about life or death. They're not talking about politics. They're not talking about religion. They're talking about things that's what they always say, the show about nothing. We're talking about little things that really don't mean nothing. So you're really not threatened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in a way, you could see how people extrapolate certain cultural things even further, where they'll ostracize somebody where, they're a germaphobe, but maybe somebody else is, certain ideology or whatever, and they ostracize those people. But you can see that kind of thinking brought down to nothing level. You know what I mean? That's how they take
to the flippant almost.
Yeah. So they take that kind of thinking that we treat serious issues, and they'll bring it down to something that's not as serious, but they'll treat it like it is serious. You know what I mean? And that's what makes it humorous.
They'll invest a lot into it, but even though I think they tentatively.
Well, a good example I remember is the episode where George goes to park on the street, and then this guy goes to take a spot, and then so they're fighting over parking. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like this. You got a whole group of people who come in. They keep coming. People keep coming up, and some people's like, if he's backing up, then he has the spot. And the other guy's like, he pulled in there first. It's his spot. And they're like fighting, and everybody's arguing, like so much arguing going on over something that doesn't mean anything. But that's like where we make a stand on certain thing. Yeah. And George is not going to move his car. The other guy's not going to move his car, you know, and that kind of stuff. But they're taking that level of intensity of you would take with the serious issue, and they apply it to like a meaningless issue, but they're taking it to that extent. That's what makes it humorous.
And I think what makes it so endearing to the watchers, especially devoted watchers, is that they have built these characters so well and so consistently that it's like, this makes a lot of sense for George. He's a scumbag, but he is a principled scumbag. His scumminess has principles, you know.
Or he's self-centered. Oh yeah. And so he's not going to give up a spot.
Oh no.
I mean, but he feels like he's entitled to it.
Yeah.
You know.
And so it's not like out of you see him do it and you're like, that's George. Yes. I understand. So if we were to ever write something, if we were ever to be writers on a show, so I think I would have never thought. I've always looked at writing for these things as some kind of like esoteric magic that I would never be able to do. But when I now with the onset of YouTube and behind the scenes, all kinds of extra content, I've gotten to see that a lot of it has to do. A lot of it is like what we did at the beginning. Mm-hmm. People will just come with ideas and say like, hey, I just have this fragment, help me work it out, and it's not just some intelligent person saying, here it's all scripted out, I spent a whole night writing it out and here it is. No, it's a group of people, 3 or 4 or sometimes maybe just 2, that are sitting down and saying, well, do you have an idea? Okay, here's my idea. Sitting on the toilet. Okay, well, how can we? Okay, social media. You know, how you bring in workshopping things. I think it's less daunting to me in that context.
Well, I think the other thing that was popular in the 80s and the 90s is they would take a comic and they would take their routine and then they would turn it into a TV show. So you have Home Improvement, you have Roseanne, Seinfeld. And so Seinfeld, I'm sure, had all these kind of bits around these little things. So he was already thinking in that category of like little things, little battles that you got throughout your day that are meaningless, but you still have to fight them. And so I think Larry David was just kind of on the same wavelength.
I think they were really simpatico with how they thought of things.
But if you already have a template of how you tell your jokes, like a stand-up, then that's what they were looking for in those days. I mean, even politically incorrect, it was still taking Bill Maher's stand-up and turning it into a show, because he always made jokes about politics and stuff. So they would take a comedian and they would see, how can we market this into a show? And I mean, Norm Macdonald has had 2 or 3 shows, sitcoms that never really caught on. And, you know, you could probably go down a list of, King of Queens, Everybody Loves Raymond. You know what I mean? These are all comedians that they took their shtick and made it into a TV show.
I hadn't even thought of Roseanne. I forget that her comedy was a lot about home and being, white,
working class, blue collar.
Yes.
And Norm Macdonald, that's where he got his first writing gig. Roseanne.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch his sitcom? Because his sitcom ran for like 3 seasons.
He had 2. Like,
one had one.
One was just Norm.
Yeah.
Just called Norm. And then the other one was before that one. And it didn't, maybe the Norm one didn't last. And the first one lasted for a little while.
I'm not talking about a talk show. I'm talking about the sitcom.
No, I'm talking about a sitcom.
He had 2
a sitcom.
sitcoms?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that he had one for a while.
Okay.
And where it was, he was married, and then he had his father-in-law living there, sort of like King of Queens kind of thing. And or maybe it was his father, but he was older and he was living there. And then the next one was I think it was like sort of like a Bob Newhart, which he's another comedian, and they turned into a TV show. It was kind of like a Bob Newhart thing where it was him and his wife, but I think they ran a hotel or something. And so people kept coming and going in their house, and so I don't remember.
Okay, well, I'll have to effort that.
Because
I'm sure we're going to talk more about. You and I are huge Norm Macdonald fans. We're going to talk more about Norm Macdonald. The thing I'd like to take away before we go to the story time, the thing I'd like to take away, as I hope me and you, my hope is that by the end of the season, me and you write a sketch and then film a sketch, because we have experience. Or we have a history. Me and you, I don't know if people know this, but we wrote a little short together. You remember that?
Oh yeah, in college.
I actually just rewatched it.
Where it's in black and white. Yeah.
That
for
was
sure.
Good.
Yeah, and I think we would have won the film contest, but like pretty much everyone just voted for their own film. There wasn't bystanders who were there. It was all
there was no judges.
It's just people who did their film came to see their film, and so somebody just incorporated more people, and so they won. Yeah.
So that is a goal for me. I don't know if you jive with that, but I think a good goal by the end of this season of this podcast, we have a short, a funny little short that we put together based on our quadrilateral, based on the things that we have sort of deduced, and we put it into action,
but here's the thing is, I think how we work is differently, so we'll have to learn how to mesh our styles, because if we're going to do a short, when we did that last video, we just drove to a location and just said, what are we going to do?
So
Which
what
is
you're
fine.
telling me is you have a hard time dealing with my gun deck in it.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't mind, like, we write a scene and then we get there and we have some dialogue, but then we's like, you know, let's do another scene. This time, let's change this around and see how that works comparative.
Yeah. No, I'm actually saying exactly what you're saying. I'm saying enough of my dragging Joseph around and sort of just gun decking it.
Yeah.
That doesn't work as well as let's actually be intentional.
Yeah.
And as we think more about writing and the importance of being writers in the comedy field, not that we're going to become some big, but I think a good product from this podcast would be to evaluate it enough to be able to put it in action, you know, enough to say, you know, maybe it'll be a piece of junk, you know, but at least it'll be something that, you know, is a product of the show this season.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Sounds good. So
the two things that I'd like to remember from Seinfeld is, one, what you said, being able to mesh the various, drawing from various. Oh, he's gone. But so drawing from various cultural things, cultural connections, and being able to mesh them together in a complicated yet still relatable way. And the other thing I took away from Seinfeld in general in this episode was the ability to stay true to characters. Once you build characters and you sort of know their thing, so Kramer not being able to make his showers more efficient, just sort of just gives into it and wants to live in the shower. Very quintessential of his character. And it goes the same for all of them. Very staying true and consistent to characteristics about character. Not necessarily who they are in real life, but developing a character. And that'd be something I'd like to incorporate into writing. Joseph has left us. His computer's is rebooting, updating something, and will not be rejoining. So from Judah Buddha and what was Arthur Spooner, aka Joseph, we are signing out, and we will talk to you next week from the Chickenfoot Podcast.